Okay, we're back. I'm getting used to this technology. It doesn't tell you when you stop recording, so I kept talking and talking and had no idea it wasn't recording anymore. All right, back to bad thesis statements. Bad thesis statements are really just statements of fact, like we said. So people use many lawn chemicals. So what? Here's another example. Taking English 101 is a requirement for most Greenville Tech students. Again, yep. I mean, you can't argue with that. You could argue with whether you think that's a good practice or not, but yeah, such as it is, it's just true. There's nothing you can say one way or another about it. Okay, another one. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 granted all African Americans the right to vote. Yes, it did. Again, like, you can't, I mean, that's an indisputable fact. Well, no, I mean, I guess you could say that, like, okay, people still had a hard time getting access to voting rights, or like they still do. That's still an issue. But like, okay, this thesis isn't saying that though. It's just putting out a Wikipedia fact, and then okay, where do we go from there? So again, the problem with all these is, well, fortunately, the third one's not as obvious as it should be. Like when I use these examples in face-to-face class, most students are pretty shocked that it took that long. They're like, "Oh, I thought it was like 1905." I'm like, "Yeah, you're off by a good bit there." Which, okay, that would be a whole conversation too. Is like, why are Americans so they just don't know a whole lot about history, about American history, about their own history. Why is that? So that would make an interesting paper topic, but just ending an introduction with the Voting Rights Act of 1965 granted all African Americans the right to vote would not be, because it doesn't open up any further conversation. It's not open-ended enough. So yeah, you can lead up with facts, but don't just end on a closed statement of fact like that. Okay. Bad thesis statements are really just questions. So this is not to say that you can't use questions as a way to pique your reader's interest, but you definitely don't want to go overboard with that, like our steroids paper guy did. Like, he asked way too many questions and didn't answer any of them, and it was really frustrating. So you don't want to do that, and you definitely don't want to have your thesis be a question, because yeah, it's supposed to be a thesis statement, right? So you can lead up to a thesis with a question, but you just can't have it be a question. Okay. So what are the causes of violence? Oh boy. Like, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, what kind of violence? First of all, that's a pretty vague, word. Like, there's lots of different kinds of violence, so they all have different causes. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, really broad, but also like, I don't know, you tell me. Why do so many students in upstate South Carolina choose to go to Greenville Tech? Beats me. They've got lots of choices. Why do they choose us? Well, cost, convenience, and academics, and that could be the thesis, but ending on this question and then be like, oh, I'll answer it later in the paper. Readers don't like that. They want you to lay it out for them and then actually make good. So, why is teen pregnancy on the rise? I don't know. Why would I know that? Why do you think it's wait a minute. Back up. Is it on the rise? You're like, well, yeah, duh, of course it is. It's actually not. Yeah, teen pregnancy has been on the decline since the 80s. Yeah, so they may have told you otherwise in high school. Of course, like why why wouldn't they? But yeah, the fact is that no, it's been on the decline for the last 30 years. So don't believe the hype. But even if it was on the rise, I wouldn't know why, and I don't necessarily know why it's on the decline either. I mean, that could make an interesting paper, but such as it is, yeah, none of these would work as thesis statements because they don't tell us anything. So we need you to tell us. Make a statement. Okay, so bad thesis statements are too broad or too vague. Okay, so broad basically means that you're trying to cover way too much stuff. Okay, like the steroids paper, it was insanely broad. It was trying to cover every aspect of steroids, good, bad, neutral, and in doing so didn't cover anything. And that's the problem when you go too broad. Now, too vague means it uses unclear language and therefore is confusing. So let's look at some examples. Drugs cause a lot of problems in our society. Okay, well, that's kind of one of those, like, again, nada kind of thesis, because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, who can argue with that, right? Nobody's going to be like, drugs are great, openly. So the problem, though, is not just that, but also, like, there's so many questions, right? I have so many questions looking at this. Let's start with the first part, drugs. Okay, what kind of drugs? Like, what counts as a drug in this conversation? And that, because, like, for some people, they're like, they would count alcohol, whereas other people, they wouldn't even count marijuana per se. And then, like, when we start talking about medicinal marijuana, it's a whole other conversation. Oh my gosh. And, like, okay, we're talking about prescription drugs too. Oh boy. So there's a big difference in talking about illegal street drugs and prescription drugs. Like, there just is. So which ones are we talking about? Because we can't talk about all of them. Oh my gosh. And can you imagine, like, Googling, doing research for this thesis statement to try to, I mean, what would you put in? Drugs? Like, what kind of results would you get? Drugs in society? Oh my gosh. So not only is drugs too broad here, like, what do you mean by drugs? But also the word problems. What kind of problems? Economics, social, family problems, gang violence, like, yeah. What kind of problems are we talking about specifically? And then probably the vaguest word in the whole sentence is society. Like, who is that exactly? Society is just a fancy word for people, okay? But it doesn't tell us who, and it doesn't tell us where. Are we talking about people in upstate South Carolina? Are we talking about people in Greenville? Are we talking about people in America, like all of the United States of America? Are we talking about the entire world? Are we talking about adults and children? Like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So society is a super vague word. World hunger has many causes and effects. Yeah, because it's the world, right? Wow. All right, there's lots of different issues related to hunger all over the world, depending on the situation, right? So the kind of food insecurity that we were reading about in the 100 class is a different kind of hunger with different causes and different effects than, like, people who are starving to death in Syria right now because of the civil war. Okay. Like, those are just two completely different conversations, and you probably couldn't, how would you manage both of those in one paper, let alone all the other problems in the world related to hunger? So it's just, like, way too much, right? Way too much. And then, okay, you're gonna look at all the causes and all the effects, like, too much, too much. Finishing college is challenging. Oh boy. I mean, even under the best of circumstances, but right now especially, right? So I applaud you for being here, sticking with it. So the questions here are like, okay, what do you mean by challenging? But a lot of that stems from the question of, well, what do you mean by college? Because the kinds of challenges facing 2-year technical college students in, let's say, I don't know, the nursing program are really different than those facing, students at Furman, who are going to a 4-year school. They have different challenges. Both are challenging. It's just the kind of college is going to dictate the kind of challenges, right? So that needs to be a lot more specific too. A healthy diet is important. Oh boy, is it ever. I mean, I guess. I mean, it depends. Like, again, it's like, who's going to argue with that? Nobody. Healthy always means good, never means bad. So, but what do you mean by a healthy diet? I mean, it just depends on who you ask, right? If we had one single answer to that question of what constitutes a healthy diet, then, wow, wouldn't life be a lot simpler? But we don't. So it seems to change depending on, again, who you're talking to and when you're talking to them, because it seems like every 6 months they're coming out with a new set of guidelines for, okay, are carbs bad? I don't know. Is sugar bad? I mean, yeah, but, like, does it depend on the kind of sugar? Can I eat meat? How much meat am I allowed to have? Like, it really depends, right? So it needs to be more specific. The new iPhone is really great. You're probably, like, screaming right now, no, it's not. Like, I don't know. I'm not a phone person, but I don't even know which iPhone is the new iPhone. So that right there isn't clear enough. But also, okay, what do you mean by really great? Great just means really good, gooder, right? So all you're saying here is that it's really, really good. But, like, in what way? What are we talking about? The camera? Are we talking about the functionality? Are we talking about the durability of the phone? Like, if I drop it in the sink while I'm doing dishes, like, is it going to be okay? Like, Yeah, what do you mean by really great? So all of these have the same issue of they're either trying to tackle way too much or they're just not saying, they're either saying way too much or they're not saying nearly enough. Okay. So bad thesis statements are wishy-washy. What that means is that they try to say, like, they try to look at both the negative and positives, and in doing so, don't really say anything. So, for instance, there are some negative and positive aspects to using herbal supplements. Okay, well, there are negative and positive aspects to most things, not all things. There are no positive aspects to, I don't know, crystal meth, but I mean, a lot of things in life have upsides and downsides. So this doesn't really tell us anything about herbal supplements other than, like most things, they have good and bad aspects to them. Oh, here we go. Some people think we should legalize medicinal marijuana in all 50 states, but other people think that we should not do that. Okay, so then it's what? A controversy? A debate? Yeah, I mean, people disagree. But what this doesn't tell me is, well, where do you stand on that? There are pros and cons to school uniforms. Again, this doesn't tell me what I need to know about school uniforms, anything at all. Again, it's like, okay, it tells me it's a controversy, but not much more than that. So the reason I bring this up is that, I mean, not only does this set you up for a wishy-washy paper, but with reviews in particular, you want to make sure you pick something to review that you were either all yay or all nay about, so that you don't end up providing a wishy-washy stance, because that can be confusing for readers. Like, okay, well, you told me these good things, but also these not so good things. So do I buy it or not? Do I go there or not? Do I get it or not? We need either all positive or all negative. Okay. Okay. So we'll talk more about this in our Collaborate session and talk about your thesis statements for your upcoming review in our Padlet draft workshops. Make sure you're headed in the right direction. And then you'll have a quick little online quiz in our weekly folder where I'll give you some examples of these kinds of thesis statements and you'll tell me what is wrong with them. Okay? So thanks for watching, sticking with it, and I'll talk to you soon.